Wrestling icon, Olympic champion, world's worst jet skier, Perc Angle is all this and more. Look past his sporting prowess, though, and you'll find a tragic and complicated man. Perc Angle has often bragged about winning his Olympic gold medal despite suffering from, in his own words, a broken freaking neck.
My arms were numb and my neck was in excruciating pain.
Angle has said this enough, in fact, that it's easy to forget just how serious the incident really was and how it set him down a long and rocky road. During the trials for the 1996 Olympic Games, Angle landed hard on his head. He herniated 2 discs, cracked 2 vertebrae, and pulled 4 neck muscles. And yet, despite suffering injuries that should have knocked him out of contention, he soldiered on, winning that trial match 4-3 after being down 0-3 pre-injury. When he went in for his MRI the next day, Angle's doctor ordered him to rest and heal for at least 6 months. That would mean no Olympics, of course, and so Angle got a second opinion. Eventually, he found a doctor who Angle later described as smart enough or stupid enough to allow him to wrestle. The doc's solution? No more training and a hefty dose of Novocaine before each match. For normal people, wrestling with a broken neck would be inadvisable to say the least, but Angle rode his injury all the way to Olympic gold. Sadly, though, the drugs he relied on to numb his injuries would soon take hold of his life. Angle isn't the only wrestler to have dealt with drug addiction, but his issues have been particularly challenging, and at one point, they nearly killed him.
And all I was doing was trying to hide the pain, physically and emotionally.
In addition to the Olympics, Angle says that he's broken his neck several times as a pro wrestler. One break in particular led him to start taking painkillers, which soon became an addiction. Angle was taking up to 65 pills a day at one point, and even had a system in which he would go from doctor to collect various prescriptions. In August 2005, Angle suffered a laundry list of injuries in a single match, but this time he refused to take any more pills. He steered clear of them for a while after that and worked on cleaning up his life. That didn't last, though, as shortly thereafter he was abusing more substances than ever. During a 2014 interview with CBS, Angle admitted to having dealt with a 7-year-long addiction, in which he regularly misused morphine, Xanax, and alcohol, a combination that could easily have killed him at any time.
When I started taking them, I really liked it.
At the time of the interview, he was working to overcome that addiction, knowing full well that such challenges needed constant vigilance. Angle's drug addiction consumed his life for years, and he quickly began to run into trouble with the law. His first arrest occurred in September 2008, when a Pennsylvania woman reported that Angle had almost hit her car as he left a bar. He was arrested at his home after refusing a breathalyzer, but because he wasn't arrested on the road, cops couldn't prove he had driven drunk. A judge subsequently found him not guilty. Then, in March 2011, Angle was arrested in North Dakota for driving drunk. He was given a year's probation, a fine, and suspended jail time. He was then arrested in September that year by Virginia police. Luckily for him, the judge didn't hold his probation against him, instead simply levying a fine of $1,500 and sending him on his way. Angle was arrested yet again in August 2013, this time in Texas for reckless driving following a TNA show. Though he appears to have received no punishment from law enforcement on that occasion, he announced soon after that he'd be checking into rehab.
4 DUIs in 5 years. My life spun out of control.
In 2007, it was reported that Perc Angle and other prominent athletes had obtained steroids from doctors back in 2004. Angle claimed that this hadn't been a get-ripped-quick scheme. Apparently, he needed the steroids to recover from his broken neck and had every intention of procuring them legally. But his doctor apparently vetoed the plan and instead purchased them illegally online so that he could make money from Angle. As Angle himself told ESPN, "The doctor robbed me is what happened." Unfortunately, there's more to this story, and none of it is good. J. Michael Bennett, the pharmacist who signed off on Angle's steroids, had allegedly been supplying athletes with drugs exclusively meant for livestock, which, as you might imagine, is pretty dangerous. Angle insisted that he had nothing to do with the case against Bennett, who was later sentenced to 4 years behind bars. Angle dismissed press speculation as mere rumors and called journalists hideous for reporting on it. A broken neck would have ended any normal athlete's career, but Angle defied the odds and countless other injuries to write his name into wrestling lore. This came at a price, though, as Angle revealed to E-Wrestling. Now, in his retirement, he lives with what he describes as excruciating pain all the time. Angle explained that he was supposed to get surgery to put rubber disc replacements in his neck, but due to his past injuries, his neck ended up fusing itself together. As a result, he has few discs left to replace. The only option, then, is to manage the pain. Angle told E-Wrestling, "I do a lot of maintenance on it. I try to keep it as mobile as I can, and I lost about 3 inches in both arms from atrophy, my neck, and I lost a big muscle right in my chest. I'm suffering dearly, and I'm paying the price for the career I had." Perc Angle has enjoyed two Hall of Fame-worthy careers, having gone down as a legend in the world of both amateur and professional wrestling. That said, he told Sunsport in 2024 that his Team USA teammates never once congratulated him for his achievements in the pro world. Why? Amateur wrestling kind of frowns upon pro wrestling. Angle explained that there's often a stigma attached to the term wrestler, as the first thing that many people think about is the theatricality of the WWE. As such, amateur wrestlers tend to consider their field to be superior to that of pro wrestling, but Angle isn't ashamed for being appreciated for both. In fact, he says that he now sees himself as someone who helped open the door for other amateur wrestlers, like Brock Lesnar and Shelton Benjamin, who needed to make a living after their athletic careers came to an end. Angle's feats at the 1996 Summer Olympics are the stuff of legend, and 16 years later, Angle decided to test himself at the Olympics once more.
It was a point in my life where, I was letting a lot of people down with the decisions I made, and I wanted to go back to the Olympics,
Speaking to the BBC, he acknowledged it would be an uphill battle to make the team for the 2012 Summer Olympics, but he would try at the very least. Angle said, "What are my chances of making the team? Slim to none, I'm not gonna lie. But if I can look you in the eye and say I have a chance, that's more than enough." Angle's dreams were shattered in April 2012, however, when he failed to attend the Olympic trials due to hamstring and knee injuries. Angle added that his doctor told him it would take 4 to 6 months to recover from the knee injury, effectively killing any chance that he would make it to the Olympics. Angle's WWE career was filled with memorable moments, but there's one match in particular that every fan still talks about to this day, his clash with Shane McMahon at the King of the Ring in 2001. Now, this match wasn't a technical masterpiece by any stretch of the imagination, but the two wrestlers nevertheless inflicted some serious damage on one another, like when McMahon vertically suplexed Angle onto the floor. But this move caused what Angle has described as the worst pain he has ever felt, which says something coming from a guy who once broke his neck.
I cracked my tailbone. It was extremely painful. Never felt pain like that in my life.
The bruises and bumps suffered in the ring often take their toll on pro wrestlers. Considering the high-impact nature of the action and the odds that something can go wrong, a lot of wrestling superstars end up experiencing concussions, and Perc Angle was no exception. On a 2022 episode of his podcast, Angle discussed how many wrestlers insist on completing their matches no matter what condition they're in.
Safety is the best issue right now. That's what they need to worry about, is not put these guys in any situation where they end up with long-term damage.
Angle spoke about one incident in which his opponent, Eddie Guerrero, had to lead him through the match because he was so out of it. But he also pointed out that the match should never have reached that point in the first place.
I shouldn't have been in that situation. That was just really bad.
Angle revealed that he experienced 4 concussions during his time in wrestling, and he still feels the effects of those injuries today.
I've gotten a little damage to my brain. There's no doubt about it.
During the early 2000s, Angle used his star power to spotlight a serious heart condition called angina, an indicator of coronary artery disease. Angina causes chest pains, fatigue, and difficulty breathing, making simple physical activities extremely taxing. Unfortunately, this is a condition that Angle is all too familiar with. At least 14 of his family members have had angina or another heart problem. In 2003, he told ABC, "My sister had a heart attack at age 41. My dad had 2 heart attacks before he was 55. My uncle and all 4 of my grandparents died from heart attacks." In fact, Angle witnessed so many relatives struggle with heart conditions that until about the age of 15 or 16, he believed that all adults died of heart attacks. Sadly, even when he was finally in the position to raise awareness about the disease, Angle's efforts were hamstrung by the very persona that made him famous. As a wrestling heel, he wasn't supposed to do so-called heartwarming stuff, and so the WWE made limited efforts to publicize his awareness campaign. In the past, Angle has been open about his abuse of painkillers, especially during his TNA run, which has led to fans calling him Perc Angle, an obvious play on his name and Percocet. Among fans, there's even a myth that he wrestled better during this era because of the painkillers he was on. Angle has been quick to dismiss this theory though, saying he took the painkillers in the morning and after he wrestled, but never before he stepped into the ring. Speaking to Chris Van Vliet, he said that he's constantly reminded of the Perc Angle nickname.
I know they're not saying it to try to hurt my feelings. Even though
But does it hurt your feelings?
Yeah.
That said, Angle also admitted that the name still gets to him. He said that it's fine if fans want to talk about or say it among themselves, but he would prefer if they didn't say it directly to him. Angle's athleticism seems to run in his genes, as he once described his daughter Juliana as being an Olympic-caliber swimmer. Those same skills once saved Angle's life after a jet ski ride almost went horribly wrong. In a 2023 episode of his podcast, Angle explained how he had once gone jet skiing with his children. At one point, he tried to turn the jet ski in the water, but ended up flipping the vehicle. Even though Angle had his life vest on, he ended up under the surface. Worse still, he can't swim.
And she came over to me and saved my life. And she pulled me over to the jet ski. She swam 50 yards with me in her hands.
Angle added that his daughter even helped him get up onto the jet ski because his old neck injuries made it difficult for him to pull himself up.
She jumped up on behind me and I said, you know what, honey? You just saved my life.
She really did, though.
She really did.
Aside from his many injuries and struggles with addiction, Angle has dealt with a number of blows in his personal life, often involving the people he loves. Take his father, for example, who died when Kurt was just 16. David Angle was a crane operator who worked hard at supporting his kids' dreams. He attended all of Kurt's wrestling matches and football games, but sadly, he never got to see his son become a world-renowned athlete. In August 1985, David fell out of a 15-foot-high crane and landed on his head. Even with his skull cracked, he walked himself to the hospital. This gumption couldn't save him from slipping into a coma, however, and he died 2 days later.
There was no way of saving him. It was a pretty sad event.
Kurt responded to this loss by doing what he did best, throwing himself into athletics. Looking back, he believes his father's death might have been why he became Perc Angle in the first place. As he wrote in his autobiography, "I grew up and overcame my fears the day he died. I vowed right then and there to become a champion, to do whatever it took." Like all great athletes, Perc Angle had a great trainer, David Schultz. Schultz, who had won Olympic gold in 1984, helped prepare Angle for the 96 Games, but he never got to see his protege triumph, thanks to perhaps the most senseless murder in the history of amateur wrestling. Schultz and Angle were members of Team Foxcatcher, a wrestling squad financed by wealthy philanthropist John DuPont. Sadly, DuPont suffered from some serious mental issues, including delusional schizophrenia and paranoia. According to court testimony, his issues became worse as his team prepped for the Olympics, and he threatened his wrestlers on numerous occasions. Then, on January 26, 1996, DuPont shot and killed Schultz in the driveway of Schultz's home. For that crime, DuPont was sentenced to 13 to 30 years in prison. He died behind bars in 2010. A devastated Angle wound up being the only member of Team Foxcatcher to attend the 96 Olympics, where he dedicated himself to honoring his trainer's memory. On September 15, 2003, Perc Angle suffered another blow when his sister Leanne died of a drug overdose. Angle didn't talk about this publicly for a long time, but he finally broke that silence in a 2014 video journal he put together to chronicle his comeback after surgery. Angle said that he dealt with her death in roughly the same way as that of his father and coach, through athletics. In this case, he wrestled a scheduled one-hour match with Brock Lesnar just a day after Leanne's passing. In retrospect, though, Angle realizes that this was a pretty awful grieving mechanism.
I didn't deal with that either. I went out there and had one of the best matches of my life. I hid the pain.
Angle's relationship with WWE Chairman Vince McMahon went way beyond dollars and cents. In the WWE 24-episode Perc Angle Homecoming, Angle said, "Vince and I had a connection. He wasn't just a boss. He was a friend, a father figure, and I actually loved him. I loved him like a father." At times, McMahon treated Angle like a son. When Angle wanted to perform at WrestleMania with a broken neck, McMahon tried to dissuade him, but when the wrestler insisted, McMahon not only offered his support, but told Angle that he loved him. Sadly, Angle's succession of neck fractures would fuel his ever-worsening painkiller addiction. Part of the problem was that he kept rushing back to the ring while recovering from his injuries. He was desperately clinging to his spot in the company, which McMahon had specially carved out for him. In 2006, Angle departed from the WWE. He later wrote in his blog that he left because he felt guilty about being, in his own words, a liability to Vince McMahon. Angle went to TNA while he continued to deal with his addiction issues. All the while, though, he yearned for his father figure's approval. WWE star AJ Styles recalled that Angle would often talk about McMahon even after leaving WWE. In late 2008, Perc Angle and his wife Karen finalized their divorce. Karen soon found love in the arms of another wrestler, namely one who worked for and co-owned TNA, the company that employed Angle. In July 2009, someone called into the Bubba the Love Sponge radio show to say he'd seen Karen Angle canoodling with Jeff Jarrett, TNA's co-owner and one of their biggest stars. Obviously, he could easily have just been a crank, but the affair was reportedly confirmed a week later. Angle apparently knew about the relationship before it became public. He also knew that when he and Jarrett had a storyline feud, meaning that when Angle was yelling at Jarrett on TNA, it may have been very real. Karen and Jeff Jarrett had been happily married since 2011. Angle, meanwhile, married an actor named Giovanna Iannotti in 2012. Although the drama surrounding Perc Angle began to die down in the 2010s, it didn't go away entirely, and in 2015, he faced a truly horrific family affair. On September 20th of that year, Angle's brother David called 911 to say his wife Donna was unconscious. According to him, the two had a domestic argument that ended with her on the floor and his knee on her chest. She later died. Shortly after, David was arrested and charged with homicide. In June 2016, he pleaded guilty to a lesser charge of involuntary manslaughter. And in September of that year, a judge sentenced him to a minimum of 2.5 years in prison with a maximum sentence of 10 years. If you or anyone you know needs help with addiction issues, visit the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration website or contact SAMHSA's National Helpline at 1-800-662-HELP 4357.